The command to retreat cut through the storm of gunfire, sharp and cold, but Sophia Kane didn't move. Dust and fragments rained down as bullets hammered into the ruins around her. She was crouched low, her hands pressing a field dressing against a wounded soldier's torn shoulder. The young man was pale, lips pressed tight against pain, but he held her gaze as if her steady eyes alone could keep him alive. Another round slammed into the wall a breath away from her head. Sophia's brown hair, tied back in a rough knot, shook loose strands into her vision. She ignored them, focusing on the bandage, working with hands that never trembled even when death breathed close. For a moment, it seemed like the chaos would swallow her whole. Then something inside her shifted. Her eyes flicked toward the fallen rifle lying only a few feet away, a weapon discarded in panic, its matte barrel glinting faintly under the broken light. In a single movement, she dropped her kit, slid across the ground, and wrapped her hands around the weapon. The soldiers around her barely had time to register the motion. 5 heartbeats later, 3 distant cracks echoed across the gorge. 3 hostile rifles fell silent. The team turned to look at her, stunned. From that instant forward, Sophia Kane was no longer just a medic who patched wounds. She was something more, something they hadn't expected. Sophia was 27, with roots tracing back to a quiet German-Austrian village where the winters were long and silence taught people patience. In camp, she'd earned respect as a medical officer, sharp-minded, precise, and always alert. She'd graduated top of her class, deployed on 4 missions, and kept a flawless record of saving lives. But until that morning, she had never recorded a single combat kill. To most of the unit, she was a caretaker, a patcher of wounds, the one who kept them breathing until the next firefight. Sergeant Robert Hale used to joke during briefings, "Keep her away from the rifles. She fixes. She doesn't fight." The others laughed, and Sophia would smile faintly without answering. Her reputation in the medical tent was different. She could catch infections before they spread, sense hidden complications before anyone else noticed, and bring men back from the edge of death with nothing but calm determination. She wrote every detail in neat, meticulous records, her notebooks stacked like quiet witnesses to battles others had forgotten. But no one knew what she carried in silence. At the bottom of her medical pack, wrapped in cloth to keep it hidden, was a single brass casing, hollowed and polished by years of her touch. It hung from a thin chain under her uniform. She called it her breathing reminder. It had belonged to her brother, Michael. Michael Kane had been one of Europe's most gifted snipers, his name spoken with respect in the shadows of military circles. Before Sophia chose medicine, she had walked beside him as his spotter, his partner, his shadow. They had hunted together in the mountains, where survival meant learning to read the wind like language. Michael had taught her patience, control, and the art of slowing the world down to a single heartbeat. "The rifle doesn't make you a marksman," he told her once, their breath fogging in the mountain air. "It's the way you master stillness. When everyone else rushes forward, you stay calm. That's what makes the impossible possible." But Michael was gone, killed shielding civilians during a rescue, his body broken under fire, while Sophia watched, helpless behind her scope. She had held his hand as his life bled into the dirt. That night, she swore never to fire again. She buried her medals, erased her records, and chose healing over killing. For 3 years, she convinced herself that part of her life was dead. She became the medic, the quiet woman who asked too many questions about the shapes of bullet wounds and who studied ballistics when others played cards. No one saw her hands were not only skilled for surgery, but once steady enough to hit a target half a mile away. The casing against her chest was the only reminder. On its side, etched so fine it was nearly invisible, were her brother's final words to her: "Aim when your heart beats slowest." Sophia had lived by that lesson without realizing it. Her medical precision, her calm presence, her ability to stay steady under fire, they all came from the same place. The sniper inside her had not vanished. She had only kept it locked away, waiting. And in the ruins of Blackstone Gorge, as bullets rained down and her team bled, the lock finally broke. The mission into Blackstone Gorge was supposed to be simple. At least, that was what the intelligence brief had promised. The objective was to move in quickly, secure a group of hostages, and get out before the enemy even realized what was happening. The maps showed light resistance, scattered patrols, and no real sniper presence. Captain David Rourke had repeated that point twice, as if he wanted everyone to believe it. Sophia knew better. For weeks, she had studied every fragment of metal she pulled out of wounded men. The bullets weren't crude or random. They were crafted with precision, made of alloys that spoke of workshops far above black market supply. She had recognized the signature of professionals. To the others, her observations sounded like paranoia. To her, it was simple truth. Someone was hunting them with skill. That morning, as the sun spilled over the ridges of the canyon, the team moved in. Boots crunched over broken stone, rifles sweeping left and right. Sophia followed 50 meters behind, medical pack strapped tight to her shoulders. Her role was clear: stay back, wait for casualties, and treat them fast enough to keep the team moving. She repeated that order in her mind like a mantra. Stay back. Heal. Do not fight. But within minutes, the mission fell apart. The first shot rang out, flat and heavy. Sergeant Blake dropped instantly, blood blooming across his shoulder. Before the sound had finished echoing through the gorge, Sophia was already sprinting toward him, instincts overriding orders. She slid across concrete dust, pulling gauze from her pack, her hands moving faster than thought. Medic, fall back. Captain Rourke's voice thundered over the noise, but she ignored him. Another shot screamed past her head. The angle was wrong. These weren't random rounds. She lifted her eyes, and in that instant, the medic's mind and the sniper's instincts fused into one. Subsonic fire. Suppressed weapons. Elevation high northeast. Roughly 800 meters. She didn't need a rangefinder to know. Her body remembered. There's a sniper on the ridge, she shouted. The captain scanned through his optics, but shook his head. We can't see him. Stay with Blake. But Sophia's sharp eyes had already traced the lines. The bullet impacts weren't wild. They were shepherding the team into a kill zone. She could feel the trap tightening like a noose. Another soldier cried out as a third shot tore concrete beside him. When she caught the faint muzzle flash behind the twisted remains of an old radio tower, her stomach tightened. Not one sniper. 3. Sophia's breath caught. She could hear Michael's voice from years ago. They'll work in threes. One fires, one spots, one covers. Break the triangle, and the rest collapse. Beside her, Blake's rifle lay heavy on the ground. Her fingers hovered over it. For 3 years, she had sworn never to hold such a weapon again. She had told herself that oath was unbreakable. But when Corporal Hayes stumbled, blood spraying from a fresh wound, her body chose for her. The rifle fit into her hands as though it had been waiting. She slid into position, cheek pressed to the stock, her eyes locking into the scope. The chaos around her blurred into silence. Heartbeat slowed. Breathing calmed. The world narrowed to crosshairs and wind. First target. Movement near the radio tower. 847 meters. Slight wind shift, left to right. She adjusted, tightened her grip, and exhaled into stillness. The shot cracked. Far on the ridge, the first sniper folded. Before the echo faded, she was already shifting. Second target, the spotter. He had barely turned his head before the bullet found him, his binoculars tumbling from his grip. The last man bolted, trying to shift position, but Sophia led him by 3 meters, calculating instinctively. She fired. The rifle bucked, and then silence reigned. 3 targets. 3 shots. Less than 15 seconds. Jesus Christ, Captain Rourke muttered. His voice sounded far away. Sophia lowered the rifle slowly, her hands trembling now that the stillness had left her. Around her, the men were staring with something between awe and unease. Blake, pale and clutching his bandaged shoulder, whispered hoarsely, "Where the hell did you learn to shoot like that?" Hayes, still bleeding but alive, shouted over the ringing in his ears. That wasn't luck. That was professional. Sophia ignored their questions, reaching for her medical kit again. She pressed gauze to Hayes's wound, her voice steady. "My brother taught me that some problems can't be solved with medicine." Captain Rourke stepped closer, his eyes sharp. That last shot, ricochet off a steel beam, right into him behind cover. That's not beginner skill. Sophia didn't look up. I grew up in the mountains, she said simply. Sometimes survival meant taking shots no one thought possible. But as she stitched Hayes' wound, her fingers brushed against the brass casing at her throat. Michael's last lesson echoed in her mind. Aim when your heartbeat is slowest. For the first time in years, she had listened. The men were alive. The snipers were dead. And Sophia Kane, the medic who had buried the warrior within her, felt a door opening she had thought closed forever. When the last echo of gunfire faded, the gorge seemed to fall into an unnatural silence. The wind whispered through shattered concrete, carrying dust that stung the eyes. Sophia's pulse thudded in her ears, slower now, her breathing even, though her hand still trembled from the rifle's recoil. Around her, the team regrouped in fragments, men crawling to cover, others scanning ridges with wary eyes, each one unsettled by what had just happened. Sophia returned to Hayes, her hand steady as she pulled a fresh suture kit from her bag. She had transitioned from sniper to medic in the span of seconds, the rifle already set aside, as if it had never touched her palms. To anyone watching, it looked impossible. One moment a healer, the next a silent hunter. Blake winced as he leaned against the rubble, his voice hoarse. "Doc, tell me the truth. Before today, when's the last time you fired a rifle?" Sophia didn't answer at first. Her needle threaded, skin pressed together, stitches neat and firm. Finally, she spoke quietly, almost to herself. 3 years, 2 months, 16 days ago. Blake stared, disbelief written across his features. No one keeps aim like that without practice. Her brown eyes lifted to meet his, calm and haunted all at once. Some skills don't fade, Blake. They wait underground until the moment someone you care about is about to die. Rourke crouched nearby, his rifle resting across his knees. His gaze was heavy, probing. Those weren't chance shots. That was professional work. Who are you really? Sophia paused, closing her kit with deliberate precision before answering. Before I studied medicine, I served in European Special Operations. My brother Michael was the sniper. I was his spotter. The words came slowly, pulled from a part of her soul she had locked away. We grew up in a village where hunting was survival. He trained me, breath control, wind, patience, psychology of targets. He believed being a marksman wasn't about the rifle. It was about slowing the world when everyone else rushed. Her hand brushed the brass casing at her throat, warm against her skin. Michael lived by those lessons. He died by them too. Hostage rescue. Children trapped in a school. He cleared 17 militants that day before an RPG struck the building. I watched him fall. Watched the greatest sniper I'd ever known die protecting lives. Silence wrapped the team as she spoke. Even the injured men stopped groaning for a moment, listening to the truth unravel from their quiet medic. After that, Sophia continued, her voice low but unwavering, I buried everything. My medals, my service record, my name in those circles. I swore never to fire again. Instead, I chose medicine. Healing, not harming. Saving, not taking. Hayes coughed through the sting of disinfectant, his words rough. But you didn't lose it. You can't erase what's carved into your soul. Sophia's lips tightened in a thin line. Every wound I treated, I saw the caliber, the angle, the distance. My surgical hands came from years of trigger work, but I convinced myself I would never use it again. Blake's face paled from blood loss, but his curiosity pushed him past the pain. So what changed today? Sophia tied off the final stitch and looked at him steadily. You, Hayes, the rest of you. When I realized my oath not to kill meant all of you might die, I understood something. Sometimes to save lives, you must take them. It isn't betrayal. It's duty. Rourke's sharp eyes never left her face. He pulled a folded map from his pocket and slid it across the ground. Then explained this. Sophia hesitated, then reached into her pack. She pulled free her private notebook, pages dense with sketches, fragments of bullets, calculations of distance and trajectory, maps of Blackstone Gorge filled with dotted lines and kill zones. I've been tracking sniper fire for weeks, she admitted. Every fragment I removed told a story. These weren't random shooters. They were coordinated, likely mercenaries. Their fields of fire were precise, shaped by someone who understands special operations. This morning only confirmed it. Rourke's jaw tightened as he scanned the notes. This is intelligence work. Why didn't you report it? Because I'm a medic, Sophia said flatly. It wasn't my role. But maybe it should have been. My brother used to tell me, knowing your enemy is the first step to defeating him. Blake leaned back, eyes closed, exhaustion pulling at him. And you think there's a command post nearby? Sophia nodded grimly. 3 clicks north, if my readings are right. Someone has been directing these attacks, not just mercenaries on their own. The weight of her words hung in the air. Before anyone could respond, the radio on Rourke's shoulder crackled alive. Reports screamed of enemy forces converging on their location. Dozens, maybe hundreds, moving fast. The captain's face hardened. Then this just became survival. His eyes turned to Sophia. We'll need more than medicine now. We'll need a sniper. And like it or not, Kane, that's you. Sophia touched the brass casing at her throat. Michael's voice whispered in memory. Every bullet carries purpose. Some wound, some kill, but the most important save lives. She picked up the rifle once more, her oath broken and remade all at once. The canyon trembled with the sound of engines long before the convoy appeared. Dust lifted in low clouds as armored trucks pushed through the narrow pass, soldiers riding in the backs, weapons glinting under the pale sun. From her perch high on the broken ridge, Sophia lay flat against the stone, the weight of the borrowed rifle pressing into her shoulder. Below, the SEAL team scrambled to reposition, hauling the wounded into cover, while Rourke directed movements with clipped hand signals. Sophia inhaled slowly, drawing air deep into her lungs. She had not fired in years, but her body remembered every step. Adjust the scope. Check the wind. Count the seconds between each heartbeat. Michael's voice hovered in her thoughts like a ghost, guiding her, grounding her. She glanced at the brass casing on its chain and whispered under her breath, between saving and taking, which one am I now? The first trucks broke into view. A dozen enemies spilled out, fanning across the road, rifles sweeping. Sophia adjusted, tracking their leader. She didn't fire immediately. Her training whispered patience. Pick the one who directs the others. Remove the mind, and the body falters. The crosshairs steadied on a man barking orders. Her pulse slowed, until it seemed time itself held still. She squeezed. The shot cracked. The man dropped instantly. Confusion rippled through the group. Sophia shifted to the next, breath steady, body calm. Another leader fell. Then another. Within seconds, the convoy lost cohesion. The team below seized the moment, rifles roaring, grenades flaring. But the fight wasn't simple. More trucks poured into the gorge, men spreading into firing lines, their rifles sending sparks and thunder across the rocks. Bullets shredded stone near Sophia's position. One round struck so close that fragments sliced her cheek. She did not flinch. Down below, Hay staggered while dragging another wounded comrade. Blake tried to rise with one arm in a sling, teeth gritted against pain. They were holding, but only barely. Sophia shifted again, her scope sweeping. A machine gunner had mounted atop one of the vehicles, spraying the valley in long bursts. She aimed high, calculated distance, adjusted for the slight rightward wind, and fired. The gunner slumped, weapon clattering uselessly against the truck. Rourke's voice burst over comms. Cover fire is holding thanks to Kane. Keep pushing left. Sophia lowered the rifle for a moment, chest heaving. She looked down at her hands. Only hours before, they had been stitching wounds and pressing bandages. Now those same hands delivered death with cold precision. The medic and the sniper were no longer separate. They had fused into something new. As she reloaded, a flash of memory seized her. The last time she had been on a ridge like this. Michael beside her, calling wind speeds, whispering encouragement, telling her when to breathe. She remembered his laughter, soft and certain, as if nothing could shake his calm. That day had ended in fire and collapse, his body crushed beneath rubble while she screamed into the scope. Her throat tightened, but she forced herself back to the present. The team needed her. If she faltered now, more brothers would fall. Another wave of enemies surged forward. Their fire grew organized again, sharper, disciplined. She tracked their pattern and realized with a chill that someone on their side was directing them through radio commands. A commander hidden out of sight. If she didn't find him soon, the team would be overwhelmed. Her scope swept the high ridges beyond. Dust shimmered in the heat. At first, she saw nothing. Then, a faint reflection off glass, binoculars. A figure crouched behind camouflage netting, headset gleaming faintly under the light. Her heart stuttered. That was the mind. She steadied her breath, counted silently. 1, 2, 3. On the fourth heartbeat, she pressed the trigger. The shot cut across the canyon. The figure jerked, and the hidden commander slumped. Instantly, the enemy formation faltered. Confusion rippled through their lines again. Without orders, their attack scattered into chaos. Down below, Rourke signaled the advance. Push forward. Secure the hostages. Sophia exhaled, lowering her rifle. She had done what Michael always told her. Find the one who shapes the battle and silence them. But as the team pressed forward, she remained on the ridge, staring at her hands. She was a medic. She was a sniper. She was both and neither. The oath she had once sworn, to never again take life, was in ashes. Yet as she looked at the men below, alive because of her, she realized her oath had not been broken. It had been remade. Sometimes saving meant stitching flesh. Sometimes saving meant pulling a trigger. She brushed the brass casing with her fingertips, whispering to the memory of her brother. I understand now. You weren't teaching me to kill. You were teaching me when not to hesitate. The gorge echoed with the last bursts of gunfire as the SEALs secured the hostages. 4 hours of battle stretched into eternity, and through it all, Sophia fired 37 times. 37 precise shots. 37 enemies silenced. Not one ally fell after she took over watch. When it ended, she sat in the dust, rifle across her knees. The weight of it heavy, but familiar. She felt no triumph, only quiet certainty. The medic had saved lives. The sniper had saved them too. And for the first time in years, Sophia Kane accepted she could be both. The battle was over, though the gorge still smelled of cordite and blood. Burnt metal and dust lingered in the air as the SEALs escorted the rescued hostages toward extraction. The valley floor was littered with spent casings, broken weapons, and silence that felt heavier than the firefight itself. Sophia Kane walked behind the group, her rifle slung across her back, her medical pack once again heavy on her shoulders. In her hand she carried gauze and tape, tending to Hayes' side as he leaned against her for support. His face was pale, but his grin was stubborn. You stitched me together and shot half an army, he said through clenched teeth. Remind me never to underestimate you again. Sophia shook her head faintly. I did what was necessary. Nothing more. But the others didn't see it that way. Every glance that landed on her carried something new. A mix of awe, respect, and quiet unease. The woman they had dismissed as just a medic had become something different in a single day. When the helicopters finally roared into the canyon, the hostages were loaded first, followed by the wounded. Sophia climbed aboard last, her eyes sweeping the valley one final time. She knew stories would spread. They always did. But inside, she felt only exhaustion. Back at base, Sophia tried to return to routine. She scrubbed her medical instruments, replenished bandages, updated casualty logs with meticulous handwriting. She told herself that if she worked hard enough, maybe the day in Blackstone Gorge would fade like a dream. But it didn't fade. Soldiers who had never spoken to her before now approached her tent. Some asked about her shots. Others thanked her quietly, their voices carrying the weight of sincerity. Even those she had never treated stopped to nod in respect. Sophia answered each one with the same words. I did what was necessary. One morning, Hayes limped into her tent carrying a small wooden box. He set it down gently on the table. The team wanted you to have this, he said. Sophia opened it slowly. Inside lay 3 brass casings, polished and engraved. Each bore a single word: medic, sniper, sister. She touched them with trembling fingers. Why sister? She asked softly. Hayes smiled faintly. Because that's what you are now. Not just the one who heals us, Not just the one who saves us from a distance. Your family. And family takes care of its own. Her throat tightened as she closed the box. No words came, only a quiet nod of gratitude. Later that week, Blake appeared at her tent, his arm still in a sling. He leaned against the frame, studying her with sharp eyes. "Command wants a debrief on your intel," he said. "You were right about the command post. Exactly where you said it would be. They're talking about recognition, maybe even moving you into intel or counter-sniper ops." Sophia looked up sharply. "I'm not interested in becoming a sniper again. What happened at the gorge was necessary, but it doesn't define me." Blake's voice dropped. "Doesn't it? You saved 30 men, Kane. Not just with bandages, but with bullets. That's who you are. Someone who saves lives however she must." That night, unable to sleep, Sophia went to the base's empty shooting range. She did not fire. Instead, she laid out a small memorial on one of the benches, Michael's photo, the original brass casing he had given her, and the 3 new ones from the SEALs. Rourke found her there an hour later, his boots crunching softly on gravel. He stopped beside her, eyes on the display. "Second thoughts?" he asked. "No," Sophia said quietly. "First thoughts. For the first time in years, I know who I am." She motioned to the memorial. "Michael didn't die for a cause or a flag. He died protecting the innocent. That's what I forgot. I thought burying my skills was the only way to honor him. But yesterday proved otherwise. Healing and protecting aren't opposites. They're the same path." Rourke nodded slowly. "So what now?" Sophia picked up the casing engraved sister and slid it onto the chain beside Michael's. 2 pieces of metal, 2 parts of her soul, joined at last. "Now I go back to being a medic," she said. "But if my soldiers are threatened, I'll be whatever they need me to be." She rose, slinging her medical bag over her shoulder. On the wall of the range, someone had scrawled in permanent marker, "Sometimes the one who saves lives is the same one who removes the threat." She touched the words lightly, then turned to leave. In the days that followed, Sophia's legend spread quietly through the network of special operations. The medic who had become a ghost sniper in the space of heartbeats. The woman who fired 37 shots with perfect precision after years of silence. Some called her a hero. Some called her dangerous. Sophia called herself neither. At night, she wrote in her journal, not about kills or victories, but about choices, about the weight of silence and the moment it breaks, about the truth that every person carries forgotten skills, buried identities, hidden strengths waiting for the right moment to awaken. Her story was not about glory. It was about service. The brass casings around her neck clinked softly when she moved. 1 from Michael, 3 from the SEALs. Together, they reminded her of a single truth. Sometimes the healer and the protector are the same person. And when the call came again, Sophia Kane knew she would be ready.